So while they're making their way up, as we started looking at what Digital India means, the more research I did, the broader it kept getting. And it seemed like there's everything that has anything to do with mobile phones, broadband, uh, content online is all part of Digital India. And it's a vast area, so it also creates a vast number of opportunities for us. So we have three panelists that were doing things in Digital India before it was part of Digital India. So we've got Anand Lunia. He's a co-partner at India Quotient Venture Capital Firm in India. Partha Gua, former SVP from Wipro, co-chair of FICCI IT Committee. And Ravi Velha, Global Content Standard Strategist at Intel. So I'm going to just start off with letting you do a brief introduction and then talk about how the work you're doing is related to Digital India.
Thanks, Harish. When I set up a fund in India a few years ago, me and my peers, we used to focus on the top 5 crore population in India, and we thought that the remaining 95 crore people, the 950 million people in India, they are to be addressed by another category called impact investing. What's happening in India now is there's a confluence of the government is going digital very fast with initiatives like India Stack, with initiatives led by SIDBI, and the people are going online very quickly with smartphone penetration. However, in the middle, both private sector as well as investors, they continue to focus only on the top 5% of India, and that leaves, for any new entrepreneurs, leaves a very large opportunity. The remaining 95% Indians are now addressable, and I hope to talk more about that during the panel.
Hi, my name is Ravi Velha. I'm from Intel. We've been involved in India and elsewhere for a long time, and Digital India is a very passionate subject, and it's a watershed movement if you look at what's going on there. So I'll get into a couple of case studies that we have done, but more importantly, I don't want to get into the competing and what Intel does every day, but 3 areas we focused into, which is education, entrepreneurship, and empowerment. So this basically Skills India is a really important fact to us. Previous panelists mentioned a lot of people that are educated, but their skills cannot be used for job. And this is much amplified problem when you go into the rural area. So Intel recently launched Ek Kadam Unnati Ke Aur. This is a part of Digital India initiative. We have created 10 centers in Telangana where we are taking this unskilled labor and just kind of like teaching them. They can go, they can learn about computing in their native local language, and so that they can improve their skills. And there are a lot of programs in place for education, empowerment, as well as entrepreneurship. So with that, I'll just give it to the next person.
Hi, good morning. This is Partha Guhapatra. I head a company which is working in terms of deploying technology to bring a change in the way people work, primarily in the areas of healthcare, skills, and security, safety and security. Prior to that, I was with Wipro for 27 years, which is an IT company out of India. And just to give you a quick backdrop, and what I'm going to talk of is, let's look at, India has been in the leadership position in the IT industry for close to 4 decades. And that itself stands testimony to the fact that there is abundance of skills and knowledge in that space. But if you have to closely look at it, the industry has been predominantly services oriented. And what is needed right now is we are slowly wanting to transition into a more product driven approach in order to make, whether it is the Make in India to make it successful, or if we are to really look at the solutions and the need. And this is a cumulative effect of a few things. One, the consumer driven, the consumer demand, the way the consumers, what they're wanting to get. Two, the rub-off effect in terms of what's happening around the globe. And number 3 primarily is the government and the policies and the changes, the development which is taking place, which is actually fueling this up. And this is precisely, if I have to, in my own opinion, if I have to really talk of, I think the industry or the type of companies which will predominantly or which will be actually leading the show is the small, medium enterprises and the startups. And that's where the opportunity lies. And I'm going to talk more about the various opportunities which lie there, whether it is in the smart cities, and various other, a host full of them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So, we've been hearing about the success of some of the initiatives that have taken place, and there's success rates that are happening. Can you share some examples of things you've seen that have moved pretty quickly or having an impact as part of this Digital India platform?
Sure. So, Harish, I showed you the initiative around India Stack, right? And I just want to give an example of something very simple. In India, the entire SaaS industry, software as a service industry, has a very peculiar problem. You are not allowed to auto-deduct a monthly payment or a weekly payment or a payment on call, because that's the backbone of a SaaS product, right? Because of that, very, very peculiarly, practically every SaaS company in India is effectively an enterprise sales. You go, and one of my entrepreneurs is here, you basically charge upfront for 6 months, 12 months, and convert an enterprise product into a SaaS product into an enterprise deal, right? Which the economics don't work. The challenge of auto-deducting payments every month is now being removed. You don't even need a credit card to charge something every month. The unified payments interface has been launched. They're testing it. And I'm expecting very quickly. And I believe that one thing itself will be a big boost to the entire SaaS industry, subscription commerce, purchase of digital media, and a lot of those kind of things.
Ravi, what are you saying?
So we have very similar expenses, and we work very broadly there. My particular area is mostly around the digital media. Just look at the stats-wise. Indian just a cable industry is 140 million household that needs to be digitized, and that means like in a completely back-to-back chain, right from the servers, client, everything that needs to be updated, workflow needs to be done. So there's a tremendous opportunity. And recently, one of the largest OTT service also launched. They plan to launch in India, Netflix. I think it's already available, and that created a lot of catalysts, a lot of local people also, hey, we want to be the movie providers, we want to digitally deliver movies, OTT. So all in general, it just uplifts the whole thing. And yes, of course, there are challenges at delivering content at the very last mile at the CDN. So there are a lot of optimization needs to be happen on that place. But in general, yes, I mean, there are certain challenges, but patience and perseverance and having a right strategy coupled with a good policy. And those are like key drivers. And I just want to give one example about how policy is kind of like helping in this space. A lot of governments, and in fact, FICCI is one of the driver of some of this policy. There is a AVGC policy, animation, video, gaming, and comics policy. So that is part of like a Skills India also, because a lot of these kids in the remote area might not have access to tools and technology. They cannot afford like a big setup that other people have. So government is also like putting those programs in a place, and the policies, right policies are being structured. So it's not like in a dream that, oh, I have to be here and do work on those technologies. Those are there. And that acting as a huge catalyst and just completely improving the whole social strata to benefit not just us or industry, but pretty much like lives, digital lives of every Indian.
Pretty much if you have to look at the journey started, as you all will be knowing, the journey started probably several years back. It's not new. It's only about, the challenge is about the scale. Because if you really look at in pockets, you have several of these programs. The Digital India, which we are trying to package it today, is actually started decades back. You have successfully running the railway reservation system. You have all the banks which are connected and working. You have the land records which have been completely automated, and it's all there. The registration of your cars are all automated. And slowly moving, we are looking at the smart cities. Now, the challenge here when you talk about smart cities is how to get connected. Now, we are in the right place where we are talking about how to connect all the solutions which are existing today to make it more effective and more efficient as it runs and make a difference to the life of that person or the individual out there. And that's precisely where the opportunity lies. That's exactly the type of innovation, the type of work which is happening here, which is happening in India, is going to, because otherwise if you look at Digital India, just to talk about the digital part of it, I think it's been there. Now, it's the connected India which we are to really move towards, And that's precisely what. So just to give you an example, we have this smart city initiative where the 20 smart cities have been nominated or selected. There are companies which have bid which have responded to the requirement, and it has been analyzed. And when the reports came out, you'd be surprised to see the type of solutions these people have presented, whether it is in the space of waste management, where using sensors, GPS and sensors on the trucks, the waste trucks, or sensors on the waste bins, and completely having a command and control to manage the entire show. Similarly, in the power sector, another successful program in the power sector has been the restructured APA-DRP program, which is the Accelerated Power Distribution and Reforms program, which is there, which has significantly reduced the losses, the T&D losses, the transmission and distribution losses across various states, and thus making them more viable, the DISCOMs, more viable, financially viable. It's been there. Now, so to make it short and to summarize, I think it's primarily we are talking about how to get all these solutions which are there in pockets. There are two challenges, and there are two things which needs to be done. One, there are 30+ states, and each of these states, whether you talk of Andhra, you talk of Andhra Pradesh or Karnataka, Gujarat, all of them have, Orissa, they have done phenomenally well in terms of using technology and deploying technology in various solutions. But how can we replicate them into other states, number one? Number two, the other challenge is to get the various solutions what are there to get connected, whether it is the hospital system to the road, like traffic management. It's phenomenal to see some of the responses to the smart city projects where they have come up with intelligent traffic management solutions, which are based on the congestion using mobile phones. Just to give you an example, using mobile phone data of subscribers to tell you where the congestions are lying. And therefore, accordingly, it is giving inputs to the traffic lights to how long they should stay red or green. So these are the type of solutions which we are experiencing, and that's the journey. Thank you.
So if you've driven in India, do we really need that? Because there's congestion everywhere. And traffic lights, even if there's green, people are in the middle of the road, right?
I think things are changing slowly, and if you really look at it, just to give an example of Delhi, just to come to that behavior of a driver on the road, very strict measures in terms of the penalties are actually forcing people.
It's actually changing. So
it is changing. Even the odd the story about how to control pollution. I think it's in the right. And we must give credit to the government. Things are changing. One major point which I would like to raise here is that, years back we have seen the government policies more subsidy-driven. And it's important to understand that when you move away from subsidy into more incentive-based, where it's more sustainable. Subsidy cannot sustain for long. And that itself actually proves that we are in the right direction, and I'm positive about it.
Now, I've seen a drastic change. In Delhi, a couple of weeks ago, drivers from especially Uber and Ola, they've been trained, so they stop behind the white line. Others are passing by them, but the behavior change is very important and it's taking place. So when you talk about the smart city and a lot of initiatives in digital India, it seems like there'll be a lot of selling to the government, right? And as fearless as entrepreneurs are, that scares the heck out of us at times. So how do we handle that? What are the opportunities there, and beyond that, even in the private sector?
Harish, I think it'll be a very limited view if we believe that digital India opportunity is only about selling to the government or largely about selling to the government. Let me put it the other way around, right? A lot of money, the government has made one simple initiative, which is opening up like 200 million new bank accounts. Now, these are first-time bank accounts. What will the money do? Assuming there is enough money, even government subsidies or payments of other kinds are there inside these accounts, what will the money do keep lying there, right? For example, it will take a lot of private enterprise to move that money into appropriate investment instruments, right? And what the government has also enabled through regulation and through unified payment interface and Aadhaar-based eKYC is you can actually now remove the mountain of paperwork, right? In Indian, we worry about the kagaj ka pahad, as we call it. Remove the mountain of paperwork, and you actually can seamlessly move money from these bank accounts through a mobile phone into investment vehicles, mutual funds, government pension schemes, etc., right? Most of these opportunities are for the private enterprise, direct to consumer or direct to other businesses. Right? What's happened again is that while the government is digitizing very quickly, and consumers are adopting like nowhere ever before. For example, Flipkart probably very soon is going to have more accounts than State Bank of India, which is a very, very important number, by the way, right? I mean, what State Bank of India has done for the country over 60 years, Flipkart is probably doing in 6-7 years. Right? What's happening is that in this adoption, private industry needs help, banks need help, telcos need help, and a lot of other industries need help. And then there are direct-to-consumer opportunities which are again opening up. So I'd say, I think entrepreneurs should, if they have to imagine the opportunities, they should say, okay, what can happen in this particular sector? And can I not sell to government? Because selling to government, of course, has its own limitations. And then, and like always, it'll always be subject to changing governments and a lot of other things, right? Digitizing doesn't mean that, like, it's not about, let's say, you can't solve government business issues by Digital India. That's not the...
Ravi,
So rather than getting into specific, because you probably heard many times, even the Prime Minister also were here when he pitched Digital India as well as Stand-Up India, Startup India session was here. Many people I see around this room, they were also part of the session. I will not get into that, but what, in quote unquote, what I will say here, like I venture to suggest, I mean, Digital India is not just like in a frenzied outburst of emotion and let's do like in a here and just get things done. It requires very steady, tranquil approach and a dedication of a very long time to make this happen. That has to couple properly with the policies, which is also like a very positive change. I mean, I mentioned in one sector, AVJC, how it is going to drive in the next 5 to 10 years. It's really phenomenal. And, coupled with the patience and perseverance. So I'll just, rather than getting into specific, because there are a lot of examples, I'll let Partha talk.
Okay, let's take the example of the automobile industry. Which is in the northern part of the country, the hub of the industry. Or let's take the example of the aerospace industry in the southern, in Bangalore. And if you really look at these two industries, you will find a huge ecosystem, an ancillary which is built around it. Now, my view is that if these opportunities are real, if these projects, programs which you're talking of, if these are real, and if there are big players who are going to bid for them and they are going to create that ancillary. Because speed is essence here. Because we are already working against time. The opportunities are already there, the bids have come out, and therefore everyone is trying to work towards to see how to quickly get there and get a very efficient and a credible solution out there in the market to work. So in my opinion, this ecosystem has to grow, has to come up. So that it becomes more sustainable over time.
By the way, if you have questions, you can start lining up at the mic, and we'd be happy to take them. I think this is more about you than about us asking questions here. So, as what we're hearing is a lot of these Digital India efforts and digitization has reached the urban areas, still not to the rural areas. For companies, entrepreneurs here, what do you see as the opportunity for them to, from U.S. Entrepreneurs to be able to work in this area in India?
Question for me?
Who start?
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just segue into Dr. Didar Singh's speech earlier. He mentioned clearly agriculture is one of the biggest sectors. So let me just give you even a higher picture than that, what I think. I mean, based on the stats and reports from UN, by 2015, world going to see more than 9.6 billion people, which pretty much 34% more population that as of today, which requires 68% more food to feed those people. And what that translates into, there is already, because of urbanization, there is a lot of loss of arable land and the precious resources such as water and land. And you can see right now in the state of Maharashtra, amount of drought that is going on. So everybody has to do something innovative, and agriculture costs more than 70% of water that is available. So managing those resources is extremely important. And if you look at the stats, Agri 1.0, which is up until 50s, then by 2012, we had agriculture 2.0, and now this is like a smart agriculture. And it's required like, just like a smart cities, smart agro is extremely important, which creating a lot of business opportunity. Given a perspective, just 2% increase in yield of just wheat that will feed extra bread or extra chapati for 900 million people. So those kind of just, there are social economic path, then there are a lot of things needs to be done. And a lot of this resources get vested. So managing those precise resources is extremely important. There are a lot of technologies. In fact, we have initiative called the Gramin-Intel.com you can find. So we provide recommendation services with the local farmers, right from the soil selection, nutrient analysis, seed analysis, all the way to Vistar, which is how do you basically go and trade those crops also. It's available on the mobile. So a lot of this social and economic change we are driving. So take these challenges as an opportunity, and there's a lot to be learned and a lot to be delivered, and everything is, digitization is a blessing, and just embracing would be like a really good part.
No, Harish, I'd like to add a word of caution here when entrepreneurs from US want to do things in India. While a lot of sectors are opening up, there remain some sectors which people should approach cautiously. And we talked about your initiative in education, right? It's not as simple as saying, I imagined a school, a digital-led school, blah, blah, blah. It's not easy. And I think some of those sectors, a lot of reforms are yet to happen. So people need to not only read newspapers or talk to people, but people in some of those sectors, I would advise a little bit more cautious approach. Go study the ground realities before getting in. However, there are some other areas where practically you could run a startup sitting out of the valley, right? And address Indian consumers. Like, for example, in finance, you could do that. Digital media, gaming, you could do that very easily.
I wish I'd talked to you before I started that. but the fact is that if I'd known what I was getting into, I probably would not have started, right? So a little bit of stupidity helps in those cases.
I agree with both of you. In fact, if you really look at it, what you need to really get to the rural areas is the connectivity. And we have two, this thing. One, the NOFN, the National Optical Fiber Network, which is actually slated to, which is actually the objective is to connect 250,000 villages across, and then moving forward more. The last mile is still a challenge. While the NOFN has been laid out, the last mile is still a challenge. So what we believe now is that, but at the same time, what we are also seeing is the mobile penetration. Now, so what happens is that if we are able to get the solution over the mobile, I think that's going to really make things much easier. And just to come to the point which you said that, if we have solutions which can be accessed through the mobile, so irrespective of whether the NOFN is there or not, we will be able to do that. Yeah.
And Harish, platforms are multiplying and borders are blurring. When you're talking like a digital India, we're really talking like how digital India become a part of global digitization efforts. So not to say, take example of agriculture. It's not just like happening in small city or small town. There pilots, some of the things they're working on. All the big data analytics can run on like a servers here. So literally you can leverage, and these are where the tremendous amount of opportunities, because machine learning, data analytics, big data, there are a lot of things has already been done. How you can leverage your experience to solve some of the social and economic problem, that's where also like an opportunity lies.
I also wanted to add one more thing. People from Valley or people who sort of with Western education, we are all used to thinking like engineers. And when we think of India, we think of a situation where, one, everybody speaks English, but we are now seeing language-driven applications and services moving much faster, growing much faster, being adopted much faster. I'm also seeing, we imagine a world where people will go to Google Play and do a search on the Play Store and download something. That doesn't work. People are not used to searching logically like engineers, right? We imagine a world where everybody has an email ID. They don't have. We imagine a world where everybody knows how to use a browser or Google search, which is like the first stage of discovery of a consumer service. It doesn't work that way. People are not used to going and doing a Google search for finding out something. And once you imagine the world from a Western perspective, or like an engineer, let me put it that way, a more logical thinking doesn't work. You probably have to go and say, think more socially when you address those consumers, think more in the local context, the right language, and the right communication thing. And that's how you will be able to. In fact, the same things will also work when you're dealing with the government or even local businesses, not just consumers.
While I agree with you on the social context, which is very important, but I do not completely agree with you the fact that people do not use Google to search. They certainly use Google to search there. I mean, maybe in the rural areas because of lack of connectivity, but I think we are not that behind,
No,
by the way.
we're finding that, that there's a big difference in how much is being discovered on Google, okay, let's say content, in English language and in urban metro cities versus people who are connected outside urban metro cities, but they don't go to Google that often, right?
Right.
Which is where I'm coming from. It's because you're not conditioned from childhood, when you had a desktop and a laptop in school and they were used to Google search. First time you get something, you think WhatsApp is internet, right?
Yeah.
That's your internet access.
But-
Browser is not internet access for you.
Yeah, with the younger population, because it's a young population, you know how they are quickly adopting. And
The younger ones are easier,
Yeah,
but
right.
now, so we've gone beyond addressing only the younger population. We've reached a point of saturation where a lot new market is now coming up with people who are 30 plus, yet getting their first internet connection, right? And that's the bigger challenge, and fatter wallets also there.
So, you know, I've, to your point, Anand, I've got two companies in India now, one in the education, one in the smart cities program. It's been a phenomenal experience. I mean, it was hard, but like Mr. Singh earlier said, but it's hard for everybody there. So we're not just the only ones facing those same issues. So it's hard for everyone. But the amount of difference we've been able to make, sort of the creative thinking and the blending of the two models, we've seen a massive change in our schools. So I think there is opportunity, but it is very hard and it takes time and effort.
Yes, a question. We've all morning heard, wonderful positive things about growth in India and the opportunities. The question relates to what are the particular challenges to American companies wanting to come in and participate in this growth and take advantage? And equally, what is the status of the trends relative to, in this case, American companies being able to repatriate profits and bring back the profits they've made engaging in the growth?
Should I take that?
See, as of now, sir, of course there are challenges because, like I said, I mentioned about the local cultural context. A traditional approach by American companies has been to sort of send an expat or an NRI, a non-resident Indian, to India. Not the right approach. I'll recommend hiring a local team to work on the India business, which is what very smartly Amazon did, and a lot of other companies have done it successfully. Is India open to repatriation? Of course, right? Google, Microsoft continue to charge Indians for their services through various global subsidiaries. They don't even have an office in India. So I don't think there is an issue in repatriation. In fact, the laws regarding that, and Nishit Bhai will vouch for that, are actually becoming easier and more clearer, including not just repatriation, also the levy of service tax or sales tax kind of issues. So I think, and is India open? Much more open. I actually feel that the Indian government sometimes ends up giving a competitive advantage to global companies than to local companies. So I think the level playing field is more tilted towards the global companies in India than the other way around.
Yeah, just to add to that, that's completely true. Let me pick up that last point. And we heard in the defense discussion that the foreign exchange variation, the protection was actually there for the foreign company,
Exactly.
and not exactly for the. And we are actually fighting as Indian companies to really tell the government that don't make it so non-level playing. But just coming back to your question, I think the response to that, or the fabric or the platform is different for a large American company going there versus a small medium. And I think you'd really want to know that what is it for a small medium enterprise if they want to really do the business out there.
Correct.
Because it's very easy for Lockheed or a Boeing, and they have been there for years now, for decades. Now, when it comes there, I think it is important. It is as true as an Indian company trying to do, or a small company trying to do business in the US. You have to find a partner locally, which I have to I would like to echo what he said. You'll have to have a local partner who understands that. But if it is a non-defense, it's much easier because the FDI norms and FDI rules are quite non-stringent. I mean, it's quite pretty open, and most of it is through automatic route. So I think it's more about that marriage which has to happen between the two companies on the two shores, than it has anything to do with the policies.
Yeah, I think actually to add to what you just said, our firm is an 8-year-old company in India. We've got offices across India, and we've brought about 200 international entities into India, Fortune 500 companies, but the focus now is more and more on U.S. SMEs.
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah.
With that,
And for SMEs, don't just focus on the big cities. Go interior. You might find like a proper adoption and like a lot more welcoming environment there.
Absolutely.
It just yes, it's no flight probably like few hours drive away from Mumbai or any airport you land, but rural India is also equally important as well as urban India.
Absolutely.
With-
Thank you.
With that, believe it or not, we're out of time. Thank you to our panelists. They'll be around and happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harish.